Thanks for stopping by. I did not know that classic TV edition. Please like and subscribe.
I'll think about it.
That's all I ask.
The show was canceled after the first year, you know that. But through Sheldon's insistence and the help of Procter & Gamble, it was renewed and went on to be a big success.
The Dick Van Dyke Show is one of only a handful of programs that would be considered the gold standard for situation comedies. It was witty, intelligent, and each cast member seemed to shine whenever the spotlight fell on them. But it didn't start out that way. In fact, there was one powerful individual at the network who really disliked the show, and if he'd had his way, it would have remained being canceled before the very first episode aired. And when that didn't happen, he even canceled it at the end of the first season. At CBS, there was a guy named the Smiling Cobra. I knew nothing about him until I began to work on this episode, but I soon found that a lot of people had plenty to say about him, and not much of it was good. Writer and producer William Frug said, "We called him the Iceman. He was as cold and ruthless a human being as I've ever met." His name was James T. Aubrey, and the Dick Van Dyke Show went on the air when he was an executive at CBS in charge of programming. To give you some idea of the type of executive he was infamous for getting enjoyment out of humiliating and firing people. Writer Murray Kempton compared him to the ruthless Roman Emperor Caligula. One of the more disturbing stories I came across was what he did to Jack Benny. Benny, of course, was a beloved figure almost everywhere. He was a legendary star in film, radio, and television. He was famous for portraying himself as a ridiculous cheapskate and for claiming to be age 39 decades after passing that age. Another beloved comedian, Red Skelton, had been the natural lead-in to his TV show in the 1960s. When CBS changed that and placed Petticoat Junction as his lead-in, Benny complained. Aubrey responded to Benny by telling him that his show wouldn't be renewed for the next season, despite it being in the top 20. Aubrey felt Benny was no longer relevant and said to him, "You're through, old man." NBC happily picked Benny up for the next season. Producer and actor John Houseman, best known for The Paper Chase, had his own problems with Aubrey. His interference in a series that Houseman was going to be involved in irritated him so much that he resigned. Houseman then called Aubrey the Smiling Cobra, and that nickname stuck. Aubrey also hated The Twilight Zone. He canceled it twice, once after its third season, but he brought it back after its replacement bombed. Then he cut its budget before finally canceling it for good. Aubrey didn't like the idea of the Dick Van Dyke Show from the start. He hated that Robert Petrie was a television show writer. He said mainstream America couldn't identify with that and insisted they make Petrie an insurance salesman instead. But Carl Reiner, who created the show, and producer Sheldon Leonard refused. So it looked like that was the end of the Dick Van Dyke Show. And it was. But Procter & Gamble was CBS's biggest advertiser, and they had really liked the idea of the show and insisted that it be put on the schedule. So Aubrey had little choice but to let the show go forward for that season. But you can be sure the Smiling Cobra didn't forget what happened. Some programs take a while to hit their stride and find an audience. The Dick Van Dyke Show was one of them. I've always found it interesting when you go back and watch the first half dozen episodes or so of the first season of any program that became a hit. There's usually a stiffness to it as the actors and the writers find their footing and become comfortable with their new show. The Dick Van Dyke Show was very much like that, but little by little you could see it becoming better every episode. But unfortunately, television is a ruthless place. Not many series are given time to grow, and if they don't get decent ratings in their first season, they're often gone. The Dick Van Dyke Show's ratings were mediocre in that first season. When the series was not pulling in the ratings they'd hoped for, Sheldon Leonard lobbied to place it in a different time slot, and he was successful in doing so. But adding to the problem now was that Procter & Gamble began to lose its enthusiasm for the program. So at the end of the season, James Aubrey didn't waste time to pull the plug on the show a second time. And this time it was for good. Or so it seemed. But there was one man in the show's corner named Sheldon Leonard. He's the hero of this story, and if it wasn't for him, the Dick Van Dyke Show would have been long forgotten. Leonard started out in Hollywood as an actor, usually playing thugs or bad guys. You probably know him best as the bartender at Martini's in It's a Wonderful Life.
That does it. Out you two pixies go!
Leonard produced some of the most beloved programs on TV, The Andy Griffith Show, The Danny Thomas Show, Gomer Pyle, I Spy, and more. In fact, on The Big Bang Theory, the characters of Sheldon and Leonard are named in honor of him. After the Dick Van Dyke Show was canceled for good, after that first season, Sheldon Leonard actually flew out to meet with Procter & Gamble to try to convince them to continue sponsoring the series. It was a tough sell, but they finally said, okay, we'll pay for half the show. You find someone to pay for the other half. So Leonard then flew out and made a deal with a tobacco company to fund the other half. That explains why we see the Petries and other cast members doing commercials like this.
Well, you seem happy today.
Well, why shouldn't I be? I have the two things that would make any man happy. A gorgeous wife, and I'm smoking a Kent.
Which do you like the best?
Now, there's a tough one. Let me see. For cooking and for dancing and kissing, you satisfy best. But for filter and taste, Kent satisfies best.
I'll accept that.
Procter & Gamble then told Aubrey that if he still planned on canceling the show, they'd move most of their advertising to another network, including all the daytime soap operas they sponsored. I'm sure the Smiling Cobra probably wasn't smiling much after that. Sheldon Leonard said he had a hard relationship with Aubrey. Leonard said he didn't dislike Aubrey, but they thought differently. I imagine the relationship didn't improve after that. The Dick Van Dyke Show found an audience during that summer's reruns and soon became one of the hottest shows on TV, winning 15 total Emmys, and Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore going on to have huge careers. Aubrey was fired from CBS in 1965 despite being pretty successful with series like The Beverly Hillbillies, Petticoat Junction, and making CBS a lot of money over the years. But he did not play well with others, and it eventually cost him. The Smiling Cobra bit off more than he could swallow when he tried to kill off what became one of the most popular comedy series of all time. Do you love classic TV and nostalgia? Check out the other videos on my channel where we cover everything from The Andy Griffith Show to Batman to Quisp and Quake and many more.